Welcome, everybody. If you would go ahead and put in the chat what district you're coming from, so I have an idea of who's here. And we'll go ahead and get started. So welcome to our information session on TNTP support for TClass. I'm Valerie Barron. I'm an academic partner with TNTP working in Texas, which means that I work across primarily our contracts that are supporting high quality instructional materials implementation, but also with academic strategy in the state. And have worked in other places, but I got my start with TNTP 15 years ago, working in Texas with Texas Teaching Fellows, our teacher certification program, and have done various different things supporting academics in the state since then. So a little bit about TNTP. So we are a national nonprofit. TNTP used to stand for the New Teacher Project, but now we just go by TNTP because we work far beyond just working with new teachers and work with policy and the system level and academic strategy, and in addition to training teachers. Really what we work on is helping schools and system put together all of the different elements that make up great teaching so that we can focus on helping students be successful through school and beyond school. We think that, or we approach our work with thinking about these different components of teaching. So ultimately, it is effective teaching that really improves things for students, but it isn't just about the teacher in front of that one classroom. We think about these three elements. So who is in the classroom, but also who is supporting them, who are the coaches, who are the leaders, who are supporting those people, and how do they come into the system. We think about the content that they are teaching, and this is especially true with working with high quality instructional materials. And then we think about the how of instruction. How are those materials being used? Are people being trained effectively? What are the things that need to happen to create the positive change that we want to see in our systems? And then surrounding all of that is thinking about sustainability. How do we ensure that the community, the school community, the district community, and the outside community of families and students are all engaged in the work, but also bought into the work, and that there are systems and policies that will help to continue that work beyond our direct support. Another aspect of TNTP is kind of our national report. So as we work with educators directly nationwide, we also do research kind of in practice and share our publications that are intended to identify common challenges and really address those through practical solutions. Our most recent national report was the Opportunity Myth that came out a couple of years ago. And this is a report that has really been driving our academic work for the past 3 years and will continue to do so, focusing on how do we give students the opportunity to really succeed with grade level assignments and strong instruction, and what does it take to help students really be successful. Currently in Texas, we are working with 62 different school systems directly, so including charter schools and small districts, large districts, and collaborations of districts. And we're also working with TEA on several projects. So this is across 27 different active projects. In addition to these, we are partnering with TEA for 2 big initiatives that are related to high quality instructional materials. So one of those is CRIMSI. Some of you may be involved in CRIMSI now. Through CRIMSI, we are supporting all of the Texas Home Learning products implementation at a very high level. So providing training for teachers and coaches primarily, and to some extent district leaders, but getting into the details of all of those in large group settings. We also are working with TEA to develop training on research-based instructional strategies. So these research-based instructional strategies, they are, right now, we're focusing on literacy and math, and they are instructional strategies that are really like the backbone of high quality instructional materials. So this is like what all of those THL materials are built on. And alongside those content research-based instructional strategies, there are also high quality instructional materials implementation strategies that are effective approaches to implementing those materials. And all of these are designed with the Texas context and TEKS in mind. And so this also informs the work that we would do with individual districts to support their work. Overall, we are taking an approach with high quality instructional materials that, with the right supports, high quality instructional materials really have the potential to help students be incredibly successful. And they do so through providing access to grade appropriate assignments and strong instruction initially, but eventually to deeper engagement and to high expectations from teachers and other people in the systems as students begin to succeed with these challenging materials, ultimately leading to improvements in student learning, which is what we all want to have. One of the ways that we are excited to be able to support schools and systems in Texas is through TClass. So through TClass, we are an approved vendor for instructional design and implementation, as well as product-specific professional learning. As you saw, we have experience working with all of the Texas home learning products. We also are an approved vendor for math innovation zones as well. We have a sort of key set of beliefs that we approach all of our work with. So I'm going to go through our kind of philosophical approach to supporting districts and schools with implementing high quality materials, so you can get an idea of where we're coming from with this. We'll talk about a little bit about the specifics of types of services that we provide, and then open it up for questions so that you all can ask about the details. So to start off with, an important belief is that without the right policies, structures, and buy-in, an initiative is not going to succeed long-term. And so it's really important that we understand the local context, that we think about where is the school system starting from, what has already been done, what are they trying to achieve, and really fit what we're doing to the unique needs of that system. We also think about the community. So who in the community needs to be engaged, who do we want to bring in and invest in the work that we're doing, and that really leads to that longer term change. Specifically with TClass, this is supporting the stakeholder engagement plan deliverable that is part of Decision 2 work. Another important belief is also kind of at the system level. So curriculum is only one piece of a larger district academic strategy, and making changes in the curriculum and the materials that we're using really requires a clear vision of excellent instruction and alignment among all of the different systems. So we start with thinking about what is that vision? How do the research-based instructional strategies play into that vision? Is it a vision that needs to be created from scratch, or is it more making revisions to an existing vision? And then we help our districts look at all of the existing systems that are supporting that vision and determine which ones are in alignment and are supporting, which ones are hindering progress toward that vision, what might need to be added or changed in those systems to ensure that we can reach the vision. And this all ties to the TClass deliverables of that vision and SMART goals for the initiative, but also stakeholder engagement is still a thread here that's going to go through really all of our work. Another key component is thinking about this vertical spine of support. So how do we ensure that people at all levels, especially the most important key levers at all the levels of the system, are really engaged in the initiative, but also understand like what is the change that needs to be achieved and how do we manage that change? This goes from the level of kind of like the strategy and cabinet level in a district all the way down to the classroom level, but also includes some of those other systems like materials and procurement and all of the nuts and bolts and logistics of making sure that an initiative is successful. And so when we're working with individual districts, we really think about this whole broad suite of things, and specifically for TClass, thinking about that vision, stakeholder engagement, but also things like the master schedule, the digital and print access, and how do all of those pieces need to come together. Another key belief is about professional learning. So when we think about our approach to professional learning, we approach implementation of high quality materials with the idea that people go through a predictable sequence of mindsets and skill stages as they move from just getting started and beginning to use materials with fidelity as they were intended to be used, to deeply understanding those materials and making smart choices about how to ensure that all students get their needs met and all students are able to reach the depth of rigor of those materials, while still keeping in mind what is the design, what is the intent, how are these materials intended to be used, and how should they work to improve student learning, to a point of full adoption and internalization of those materials and potential improvisation with them, still preserving those big ideas. So we're thinking here about the professional learning calendar. How do we have a professional learning plan, protocols for unit and lesson internalization, like what we have developed for CRMSI, and approaching student work analysis, all of that embedded in this larger professional learning plan. From an idea perspective, when we think about our approach to professional learning, we also think about it as a change management vehicle. So there's this key belief that comes from research, and also that I've seen consistently in work with high quality materials, which is that when teachers are able to be supported to be successful with students and see their students being successful with really challenging work, challenging ideas, then that reinforces their belief in the initiative and belief in themselves, belief in their students, raises their expectations for students. So it's a really important part of the design of our professional learning to consider, how do we ensure, how do we have kind of engineer success for our teachers so that they see that they can really be successful with materials if they're using them the way that they are intended. So the quotes on the screen here are from teachers that we've worked with, especially with literacy, on improving, and where they've really seen a shift in the way that they think about themselves, think about their students, and think about the materials themselves. With TClass, we have product-specific professional learning. We are an approved vendor for these specific materials. So Eureka Math, Amplify K5, both English and Spanish, Amplify 6.8, Odell 9.12, and PhD Science. With teaching strategies and Carnegie Learning, because those are very specialized materials with those publishers, we really tend to partner with those publishers. So for CRMSI, for example, we've partnered with those publishers to provide professional learning, but we have great relationships with them. And working with the professional learning under TClass, we would come up with, for any of the products that you're using, would either work ourselves or in partnership to build out the calendar, have a professional learning plan, and incorporate also observations and looking at student work, collecting and sharing student data to support understanding how those plans are working. This is our general approach to partnership. So like I mentioned, we start off by really understanding the systems that we're working within and collaborate with people to articulate a theory of action. How is this strategy of using high quality instructional materials going to work within this system to achieve improvement for students? And then work together to design, identify the goals that we're going toward, but also design the strategies based on what we know about what works with high quality instructional materials to reach those goals. We then partner to execute on those strategies, and that could be very high touch, like delivering PD and guiding people through strategies, to lighter touch and kind of shifting of ownership to the districts and schools that we're working with, and building that capacity. And then along the way, we really take a continuous improvement approach where we're collecting data constantly and pausing to reflect on how things are going, making adjustments along the way, and continuing with that theory of action. So there's a lot of flexibility in the way that we approach that work. Some specific examples of how this might look are, creation of some resources. So an actionable vision, that theory of action plan that outlines the strategies, either providing or creating specific resources and support for implementation of those strategies. That might look like, revising observation tools or creating new tools or adapting existing tools to really align with the strategy. And then also very specific to the products themselves, like what does it take to implement those products? So with CRMSI, we've learned a lot and are still learning about how those materials, like what it takes to really implement those materials with success, and what are the challenges that come systems. And so we use that with our knowledge of the products to help create some very specific solutions there. The way that we do those things typically includes regular coaching calls and planning calls, can also be visits, can be virtual visits, can be in person, can be phone calls, text messages, any kind of communication really. And then creation and customization of those resources for our districts and schools to use. It might look like facilitation and co-facilitation, guided vision walks where we're in classrooms looking at how is our initiative helping us reach the vision, which might be like a high level look at how we want to improve classrooms, but then also collection of fidelity of implementation data. How is the specific product being implemented, and how do those two things, the vision and the on the ground implementation, really go together? And then lots of opportunities to collaborate with other districts and LEAs that we're working with. So across our networks in the state, we bring together people across different programs who are working on the same things to really learn from each other. Measuring progress typically involves these 4 areas, but can involve others. So observations, and those observations might be in person or virtual observations. Looking at student work and student data. So student data from a higher level quantitative perspective, progress on unit assessments and interim assessments, but also really digging into what can you learn from student work itself, and examining student writing, student thinking, student problem solving with people at different levels of the system. And then we also like to get the perspectives of people in different aspects of the community. So adult surveys of how are teachers and leaders experiencing the initiative? How are they feeling about it? How are they improving their knowledge and skills? What is changing there? And then also family and potentially student surveys of how those stakeholders are experiencing the work. So that is the overview of how we approach things. And here is my contact information. And I will now go ahead and stop sharing my screen and open it up for any questions. Feel free to come off mute, or you can put questions in the chat, either one.